The Game Schooler Podcast is a weekly audio show that educates new and experienced gamers about the awesomeness of tabletop gaming. In this week's episode, we'll cover Coldwater Crown, our game of the week, discuss better ways to teach kids new games in the School of Gaming, and wrap it up by revealing our high-five 30-minute or less family games you may have missed. Welcome to the Game Schooler Podcast. I'm your host, Doug Kotecki, along with my co-host, Dr. Michael McCabe. How's it going, Michael?
Great, Doug. How are you?
Oh, I can't complain.
Yeah, man, not to give the bad podcast weather update, but we've just had glorious weather, and it's really, really nice. I know I'm quick to complain when we get snow and slush and freeze, but it's been so nice to just be outside. And
that's part of Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Deal with the really, really cold winters, and then a lot of time of the universe deciding what temperature it wants to be and not really picking a definitive season.
Right.
Spring is half winter, half blazing hot summer, and those days can come consecutively.
Right. But when you get a nice one, it's like, wow, This is great.
Celebrate it.
All good. How about you?
Good. Just a quick little follow-up right out of the gate. By the time this episode is airing, there should be two overview videos up on the YouTube. We did the last one last Saturday.
You sounded like my father there, Doug, on the YouTube.
On the YouTubes. The first one was Skyrise, and there will be another one listed, and we've got some more in the pipeline. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and watch those. That really helps us out a lot, and we appreciate it. It seems like the feedback so far has been pretty good, which is nice to see.
Yeah, you're doing a great job with those videos, Doug. It's a nice way for you to showcase some of your skills and passions and interests, so keep up the good work.
Thanks. Yes, yeah. I wish that there was somebody else doing this so I didn't have to, because I would enjoy that content immensely. I was just telling my wife the other day, is like the amount of time I've spent on YouTube of looking for just show me how the game plays. And it's like you find that 40-minute video, and it's like, I really need only the first 3 minutes of this video, and I don't care what your opinions are afterwards, but which is bad coming from a content creator. That
I don't think it's bad. You want to be able to form your own opinions, but you want an overview. So
I've played enough games. I've got a pretty good idea, if I see it set up on the table and some of the mechanisms are described, whether that's going to work for me or not at this point. So just streamlining. How about you? Any follow-up with you?
Yeah, I have some follow-up on our School of Gaming segment. And from last week, episode 169, the topic was enjoying the hobby when you cannot find another gamer.
Sure.
And we had great insights in our Discord, lots of love for Board Game Arena, which I know we talked about last week, but there are just those pockets where you can go online and enjoy board games. But I also want to give people permission that it's okay to be lonely once in a while too. And if sometimes that's what makes the convention experience or the game day so darn enjoyable, is that you get to come together and play and experience that. So that was my follow-up from last week.
Well,
really
and I believe
segment.
some people said that enjoying our podcast is a great way to experience the hobby when you're not gaming. And I couldn't agree more.
Doug's burner account.
Yeah. There's like 30 messages of that came in. Like the email box was flooded. DougK@gmail.com, DougK@yahoo.com. A lot of Dougs in the audience.
A lot
really
of Dougs.
Great. Yeah. All right. Well, what's awesome in gaming, Michael?
So I probably should have talked to you about a few of these things. I have a lot of different ways I can go. I'll just say one quick little story. This past weekend was Mother's Day, at least here in North America it was. I don't know if that's a worldwide holiday, but it's a day where you celebrate the moms.
What giant Kickstarter did you get for your wife?
And the next best thing, Doug. Okay. We had an epic game of llama with 3 generations.
There you go.
My mother-in-law, my wife, and my youngest and I all played a game of llama that came down to the final hand where Abuelita, who talks a lot of trash when she's close to winning, was muttering, saying that she was slow to figure out the game. And, of course, when I bombed out with like 50 points in llama, once you hit, a lot of our listeners know about it because we talked about the game all the time from the good Dr. Reiner Knizia, but the game ends when somebody hits 40. And it was very clear I was going to hit 40. And Eliza went out and she beat her grandma 7-8 because she got to give 1 token back.
Oof.
So it was just a fun, Sunday afternoon after church. The van's packed up. We're getting ready to go home and a little bit just play this game here. So it was really, really enjoyable.
Cool. Yeah, grandmothers are always like that.
Aren't they?
My grandma was the exact same way. We'd play a card game with her, and it was like,
oh, shoot.
It's like,
who's dealing these cards?
I'm really not sure if I'm playing this right. 2 turns later, she'd win the game. I'm so confused. Is this how you win?
I
lays
didn't
out
think
all
I
of her
was going
cards.
to get to meld.
Yeah. Now, what do I do with all of these winning cards? That's great. One of the things that's awesome for me in gaming, and this is going to tip my hand a little bit, but I was recording some updated footage for the 2nd edition of 7 Wonders. So I've got the old one. So you might, that may be an overview video that's coming up shortly.
You love that game, don't you?
Well, that's the thing, is just spending time with it and like having it on the table and putting it out. And it's like, gosh, I really like this game.
Yeah.
And it's one that I'm like, I will have this in my collection for the rest of my life. I don't play it as much as I should. I wish I could play it more. I don't care if I never play it. It will always stay there. And just an awesome game. So if you're
That's awesome.
unfamiliar with that, there'll be an overview video coming shortly. We have a full episode on it. And the new edition is just gorgeous.
So is that the video you're working on now?
It is one that will be coming shortly. Okay. It's not the next one, but it's in the queue.
No, that's cool.
Sooner rather than later. Let's put it that way.
That's great.
So,
yeah, can I keep rolling here a little bit?
Roll.
I'm working on something that will probably air, I'd say, around episode 175 or 176 because I don't want to rush through it. I'm really taking my time, but I'm playing a solo campaign of Dead Reckoning from AEG. It's a hobby level game. I'm actually really proud of our friend Dan Cunningham is going to be doing the insert on the next Kickstarter. He's just it's awesome when you have an MIT grad with a photographic or at least partial photographic memory, because I've called him twice with very, very obscure rules clarifications, and he just gives the answer like that. But I'm working on that. So I'm enjoying going through it. And I thought, I don't think this will be content for the podcast. And I thought, well, why wouldn't it be? So I'm having fun doing that. And then speaking of solo games, I got one to the table recently to preview it, to see, will my friend Doug and my other buddy want to play this? I don't know, but I still got a solo game of Lacrimosa in. DeVere published it. I don't have the designer in front of me. Sorry about that, designer of Lacrimosa. But of all places, when I went to look up a rule, the Family Gamers review came up. So I was very appreciative for the content that they create, and it helped me to get through the game solo. So just check out the Family Gamers. They have just a wonderful Facebook group. If you're in the People's Republic of Facebook, I'm sure you already know about them if you're listening to our podcast. But that was a cool game where, can I just do a quick 30-second overview of Lacrimosa? Yes. Okay. The
In
theme is such
form.
a stretch, y'all. Like the theme, it's like, okay, this is really ridiculous. Why don't you just say it's a cool Euro with an awesome mechanic? And why do we need to paste this theme on here? But Mozart's widow is
lovely woman.
Yeah, I'm sure. But you're buddies with Mozart. I hope I have the right composer. If not, people are going to be blasting me. It's Beethoven. No, I'm pretty sure it's Mozart. Is commissioning you to finish a piece. But there's no time travel in there. There's no real setting in there. The cool thing about it, though, when you select a card, you get to decide if it goes into a timeline or an event. So the cards are divided into two different parts, and you have that little action selection of, do I want to take this action and tuck the card, or do I want to take this next action and tuck the card? And that's a very crude gist of the game, but you're it's a Euro. You're taking actions and running up tracks and trying to be efficient while you do it. Man, I had fun just learning it and putting it together. I got through it, and the whole family's like, "You didn't have to put it away." I said, "Yeah, no, I just wanted to check it out, get one play in." Glad I did. I don't know if it'll stick around the collection. I don't know if I'll play it with other humans, but it was a fun little game, and I could see why it had all the buzz of Essen 2022 already. It's been, but
yeah, it's crazy how fast those things come and go, and
isn't it
that hype train rolling? Speaking of hype train, this is probably not the best use of time in what's awesome in gaming, but you texted me a little while ago. We were doing our kind of talking about our high five list for this week and kind of narrowing down some parameters, and Michael sends me a text with a screenshot from Board Game Geek. And speaking of hotness, Wormspan was ranked, 64? Is that about right?
Games. Yeah.
In family games. And I looked it up, and it's a 90-minute game with a 2.7 complexity. And I'm thinking to myself, what do we got going on here, guys? This is not a family game.
No.
A family
Where would
of
that
hardcore
fit on
gamers.
We haven't played it. I haven't played it. Have you played it?
I have not.
No, it's cool. I can't wait to play it and check it out. But tell me how that's not going to be a hobby level game by our classification, Doug.
At least light hobby.
Oh my gosh.
Bare minimum light hobby. It's shares a lot of DNA with Wingspan, but then you throw on a fantasy theme on top of it, and it's like, I don't know. Just makes me chuckle sometimes the way the hobby cycles and hotness and what's in and what's out and what's classified as what. Just crazy hobby. On my shelf this week, these are games that I haven't moved yet because we haven't talked about them. But the first one, Cuphead, the fast-rolling dice game,
nice.
Which is a cooperative game that's got like 1920s cartoon-style artwork. Pretty intense. It's a cooperative game in which you have about 30 seconds to roll a combination to defeat or not take damage from villains that are attacking you. I've played this a couple times with my kids. We've enjoyed it. I have not gotten into it enough to go through the campaign stuff. But if you like real-time games, it's kind of cool in the fact that it is cooperative. So, if you're letting yourself down, know that you're letting the whole team down in a cooperative game instead of just yourself. The next game in the list is Mystic Vale. We're going into a little AEG section here. A lot of love for them today. We're talking about Dead Reckoning, and Mystic Vale is one of the first card crafting games from John D. Clare in which you are adding clear cards into a card sleeve to power up the cards in your hand or in your deck as you go. And so they become more powerful. It's got a push your luck element as you're flipping cards over. You don't want to bust, or in that game it's called spoil. And you're trying to acquire new cards to upgrade and acquire points as the game goes along. You like that one, don't you?
I love Mystic Vale.
Yeah. That was one of the first ones I think we introduced you to, and I knew that you would like it just based on some of the other stuff that we played.
And I love that card crafting system. And Yeah. Having fun doing it right now.
Yep. And then the next one is Istanbul, which is I think
Not
it was
Constantinople?
No,
Okay.
this was after the change.
Okay.
And Istanbul, I believe it was either a Spiel des Jahres nominee or maybe a winner. But in it, you have a kind of a stack of discs that are your workers and assistants. And you can, as you move from one place to another across this grid, you are leaving your assistants behind. And eventually you have to go and pick them up. And that's determining what actions you can take. So it's a little bit of a cool efficiency puzzle of how you can get around the board to do what you want to do. So that's a good one. And then the last one is Atelier, which is an art-themed game that I've only played once, but I'm a sucker for art-themed games. I don't know why, of just like collecting paints and completing works, and that's essentially what you're doing in this game, but it's got, like every painting game has kind of a unique mechanism for how you acquire those paints and sending workers. I think that one's more of a worker placement. So those are the games that are on my shelf this week.
Nice. What's going to happen if you need to move a shelf?
We're
you
probably going to
committed?
shut down the podcast.
Okay, I wondered because I'm redoing the shelves
You
constantly.
do your shelves like every week, Michael.
Well,
I don't know how you
I'm
keep
starting
things
to
straight.
settle in. This one behind my shoulder that way is going to be Game of the Week shelf. This one behind my shoulder this way is Shelf of Reiner and family go-tos. And then the coming and going shelf is out of the studio. And that also features my hobby titles as well.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about before we move on?
No, I think that's a good spot to pause. I just I want to thank Doug. Doug helped out and co-led Board Game Club at our local middle school. We just wrapped that up. It was a nice little spring season, small group because spring's such a busy time. But anytime you can get board games in the hands of kids, I think that's a good day. So I appreciate you volunteering your time, Doug, and expertise.
No
that was fun and.
Well, you
fun.
can always tell it's a good thing when the kids at the end go, "Are you doing this next year?"
Yeah,
So,
isn't that great?
And those were some of the kind of the late stragglers that came in. So that's good to see as well.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that and thank you for doing that as well. And if anyone ever has questions on that, you can email us. You can find us on X or Discord. It's a pretty straightforward process, and I've emailed a few other folks along the way who've reached out. So I'm sure your local middle school and high school would love to have you bring in a hall of games and have kids play them.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Michael mentioned it, our Discord server. You can sign up for that by going to gameschooler.com/Discord. Great community of fellow gamers and family gamers, and they've got a lot of great stories, advice, and sharing awesome things on there. So check that out. Spread the word about the podcast if you like what we're doing. We've been acquiring some new listeners, and we greatly appreciate everyone that comes on board. And if you like it, let somebody else know because that helps us out immensely.
Acquiring listeners, you're acting like you have a collection. Like, what's next to the room where you paint your minis? Is that where you store some of our newest listeners? What do you mean?
They've got to do a 3-week internship in the dungeon.
Cow. That's why those overview videos are coming along so nicely.
Yeah, every person that subscribes, we'll see what happens. You got to have some mystery and intrigue. Contact us with questions or comments. Email at gameschooler.com. We would love to hear from you. Now let's move on to the game of the week.
The game of the week. The game of the week is an in-depth look at a family-friendly game we think you should try if you get the chance. This week's game is Coldwater Crown. Doug, give us the stats.
All right. Published in 2017 by Bellwether Games. The designer is Brian Sure, or Sur, I'm not sure. Sure. The art is by Ryan Coleman and Beth Sobel. In fact, this is one of Beth Sobel's first projects. 1 to 4 players, about 75 minutes to play. Box says 13 plus. Board Game Geek says 10 plus.
Split the difference.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that I have one caveat that if my dad, who is a complete novice, non-gamer, can mostly pick it up, it's probably good for a 10 or 11-year-old.
Yeah.
Probably 11-year-old, right?
Yeah.
If I didn't have that experience, I'd probably lean more towards the 12. But my dad has no idea what he's doing around a game table. And with that knowledge, I can say it's probably still going to, and it's straddling right on the edge of family and light hobby game as
You're
well.
stealing my notes. One of your burner accounts has access to my notes here. That's exactly what I said.
Yeah.
I could argue either side of the light hobby or family.
100%. Yep, I agree with that. During the game, you will catch a variety of fish from the shore, river, and lake. You will compete with the other players to win various contests based on the fish you catch to earn victory points. At the end of the game, the player with the most points is crowned champion. To catch fish, you cast bait, which are little plastic gems, from 4 zones on your player board or tackle box. You have a zone 3, 4, 5, and 6. That determines how many pieces of bait are going to go into that section of your tackle box. Whenever you cast the last piece of bait from a particular zone, whether that's zone 3, 4, 5, or 6, you're going to take note of the bait's color and the number. You're going to catch fish from the same zone on the game board that matches the bait's color. So when we talk about the shore, the river, and the lake, those are divided into 2 colors each. And there are 6 different bait colors in the bag in the game. And for example, if I got rid of a red bait from my 3rd zone, I'm going to take the fish that is in the red section, which I believe is maybe the shore, and I'm going to look at which fish is in zone 3. That's the fish that I'm going to take. It's going to come into my collection. Immediately after you catch the fish, you're going to look at the weight. There is a bonus.
And that's hidden information. So
yes,
you see the type of fish, and it's very intuitive once it's set up on the board. Like, oh, I'm reaching across the table there, and I'm going to grab that fish in zone 3. And when I get it in my hand, on the other side of the card, it will say the weight.
Yep, and there's kind of a rolling award for a specific weight. So it might be if it's a 5-pound fish and you flip it over, okay, great, I get this award. The next one is going to be a 4-pound fish or a 6-pound fish. Something like that is kind of a little bonus as you go along. But you're keeping all of those weights hidden throughout the game. You can also catch special master angler fish by casting the right combination of bait as the game goes along. So you can acquire these special angler fish, and normally when you're discarding bait, the bait just kind of is discarded. In this case, you can put that bait onto these angler fish, and when you complete them, then you get that fish. You do some set collection there with those. The most interesting thing about this game is the main mechanism, which revolves around discs on a board in several spaces. And essentially, everybody has a disc in front of them, and you're going to cast that disc out, and then you're going to pick up another disc from the board and take that action. So when you place the disc, you take the action, and when you take one off of the board, you take that action. These discs are double-sided. One side has a 1 and one has a 2. That determines the strength of the action. So you might put a 1 down on the board, and then you take a 2 off the board, and you get a stronger action from the one you take off the board. However, when you take it off the board, you flip it over. So the next time you place it, it's going to be a 1. Likewise, if you pull a 1 off the board, you're going to flip it to a 2. So the next time you place that one, you're going to get the higher action. And the main predominant action is casting fish or bait from your player board. And so you're going to be taking discs on and off of certain colors to remove those color bait from your board. And if you have a 1, you can remove 1 from each zone of that color. So if I place it on the yellow with a 1, I can move one yellow bait out of each section, each zone. If I put a 2 down, that means I can take every yellow out of each zone, so you can clear your board pretty fast. And eventually, when you remove the last one from a zone, you catch a fish. There's some other kind of special ability tokens that you can gain throughout the game. At the end of and as the game goes along, you're earning trophies for collecting or catching certain combinations, either all small fish or the number of fish that you've caught. It's essentially a race to see who gets to 12 fish, and then that triggers the end game. At that point, you kind of do a weigh-in for each location. So the shore, the river, and the lake, you look through all your fish. And so there are certain shore fish, and out of all of them, you can submit each different type of species once. And so you're picking the ones with the highest weight, and then everybody reveals the fish that they've caught, and whoever has the highest one is going to get the biggest trophy for that location and down the line. So you do that throughout the whole game, or for all the different locations, the shore, the river, and the lake. Whoever has the most points wins, which kind of turns some things on its head because you're not gaining points for every fish that you collect.
Yeah,
your
points are really tight.
You're catching fish in order to try and get those trophies at the end of the game or during the game in some cases. And I like that, just getting into the things that I like. One of the things I like is that it kind of just keeps everything up in the air, and it has such a great thematic tie of, I caught all these fish, and I don't know if I caught the heaviest ones. I don't know if I caught the biggest ones, and I'm going to score a bunch of points at the end, or, so you're trying to get a variety of fish species as the game goes on. So it's got a cool, the mechanisms tie to the theme really well. And I think it does a good job of that. What are some of the things you like?
I love, you talked about it, but I'll say it again. I love sending the tokens out and reeling them back in. That 2-part action to start my turn, where I'm going to send a token out and I'm going to choose the location where I'm sending it, and I'm going to pull in, and trying to also maximize my 1s and 2s because the 2s are slightly more powerful with what's in my tackle box to try to put together some cool combinations. It was a ton of fun to play. I think the luck in the game is also a very solid equalizer. You'd played the game before, your dad had played the game before, and I was playing it for the first time, and I thought that, that equalizer makes this a great choice for daily gamers to play with family and friends who don't play regularly, right?
Yeah.
So if you have someone in your life and they're a good friend, a buddy, a family member, and they either love fishing or, the outdoors, like it's so thematic. And at the same time, I don't think that you're ever really out of the game because of the luck factor.
Yeah. Well, and as you're filling up your tackle box, those zones with the gems for the bait, it's like there's luck there in what colors you draw. If I fill up a whole thing with red and I could theoretically clear out a whole zone with one turn, is different than if I've got a whole variety. But
yeah,
at the same time, if I'm going after some of those master angler fish, having a variety is better because I can put them out there and get some more points that way. So thematically really works well on the idea of like, sometimes you catch stuff, sometimes you don't. And using some of those special ability to say, I already have a flounder, I want to get this fish over here to kind of help me at the end of the game is pretty cool.
Yeah, the art, the production, it's beautiful. The wood tokens, little tackle box that you have, how the table is set up, very intuitive feel to the actual board game table. Not table. Why am I saying that? The board game mat that has
the game board.
The game board. There we go. Whoa, there are words. The production value that Bellwether Games put out is awesome. And in researching the episode, this is a publisher that is inactive.
Yeah.
So they're not quote unquote out of business, but they're not currently active, but they're still around for customer support. And there are a lot of copies of this game out in the wild, and you can get it at a very reasonable price at the time of this recording. So
yeah, one of the things I do have to applaud on the kind of the graphic design choice that they made, which is when you're talking about the 3, 4, 5, and 6 zone and that player board can be flipped around so that players on opposite side of the table, you are looking at a mirror image. But basically, if Michael and I are on the opposite side of the table from one another, we both have the mirror image of one another, so that when we catch something in zone 6, it's represented in our board. So mine would be upper where his is on the lower. And it's just such a simple thing to be able to rotate that board around and not being stuck with like, no, this is the top of the tackle box. It needs to be there. That you can sort it around or switch it around, that everybody, there is no confusion of what zone you pulled from, as long as you set that up right from the start. And I
had to make it easier for the teach too, didn't it? I mean, you did a full-blown teach. And
you don't have, at a certain point, you don't even have to really pay attention to the numbers in some way, because it's like, oh no, the upper right one is the one that I moved my stuff from, and I'm going to take the upper right fish from that section.
Yeah.
Which
and
really
the second
helped.
time you do it as a player, it's intuitive from that point on.
So just a great choice there to make that reversible and flip it around, that I wish more companies thought about some of those tricks and made some of those things more efficient.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Nope. Go ahead.
The other thing that I enjoyed, I thought the player interaction was excellent. And that sense of competing for those little point bonuses of if you get the exact right weight of the fish, which you happen to get, like 5 out of the 6 times that anyone got it. There was a little built-in mini race or competition, bonus, reward, payoff that almost forced us to check in on each other's turns that I liked, that I enjoyed. It wasn't just a head down in my own tackle box and try to maximize what I'm doing, which is what I kind of thought I was going to get when I went into the game. And I really found myself invested in other players' turns more than what I thought I was going to be.
Yeah, it's one of those where you are invested in every turn, because you want to see, oh, did they catch a fish from that zone? What's the new fish that's available? If they put, and then it's that idea of them putting a disc out, and it's like, where are they going to put that to? And if they put the 2 on the blue, and I need
get to
that,
bring it back,
that's awesome. Or like, please don't put something there, because that's the other thing, and it's one of the skills. It's got some interesting skills in it, but the logistics of how to accomplish what you need to accomplish, which is that idea of like, I need to make sure that the red one is the last one I get rid of so I can get a fish from that zone. However, sometimes the order that I can do those is not set up properly, where it's like, I can't, there's
you
already
need to cast
something
out to the red, or the red's been blocked.
There's already something there on the red, and I can't do it until after, when I take it off, and juggling that. And there are probably maybe 1 or 2 turns a game where it happens, where it just, you can't make it work, and it kind of seems like a wasted turn. But I really like how it actually feels like a thematic thing of like, I'm just not catching anything this round.
That's fishing.
And so my dad, we wrote my dad in because my dad's an avid fisherman, so he would relate to the theme. But there are elements of that where it's like, gosh, that just the cast in, cast out, dropping a whole bunch of bait, but you don't know which one's going to bite. Sometimes you have turns that don't work out. You're trying to do the best you can to acquire the fish, but you won't know until the end if you've got the ones to get the trophy. Those things are really strong in this game, in such a unique game.
Yeah.
That kind of care and effort is not in a lot of games to make those connections.
Yeah, and you're not getting snags, seaweed, losing lures, a bad
baking
turn.
in the sun.
There's a sense of, exactly. There's a sense of getting hooked in the neck. There's a sense of waiting a turn, which gives that little bit of a feel of fishing without all the truly negative setbacks of fishing for anyone who's done any fishing in their life. So.
Yeah. Some other skills, tactical thinking is a big one in this game, challenging players to make decisions based on the currently and frequently changing information. There are times where you think you're going to go after one fish, and then, maybe I can get an extra bonus if I do this one, or or things like that. So you're doing a lot of pivoting throughout the game. And then resource management, managing your bait and the way that you're going to cast it and put it out there is such a big part of this game, and managing what you have. There's a couple of special bonus tokens that you can acquire throughout the game, and when the exact right time to use that can play a big part into that as well. So you're very much in control of your bait, your reel, and making everything cohesively work, which I think is pretty cool.
Any other skills, Doug?
No, those are the big ones for me.
Oh, I see. I made a bold prediction before we came into the booth. It's clear that you haven't been on X/Twitter, so that's nice to know that I can make those bold predictions going forward. But I failed, audience. I will be honest and genuine and let you know that I failed. And so if Doug's not going to say this bold prediction, I will, and that's observation. And as you'll see on X, we define observation as a game that rewards careful watching of details and behaviors in order to understand or arrive at a judgment. I don't have perfect information where I can plan more than one turn ahead.
Yeah.
But if I'm watching closely, I can somewhat guesstimate. Right?
Yeah.
What's that marketplace called where you can get fish and fill up your leftovers? And not to put you on the spot, but while you're looking that up.
Yeah. Go ahead.
If I see that another player has 2 or 3 of those, I kind of know like, oh, they're going to try to fill up those cards. And so I think that even in that initial play, I noticed that there was a lot of observation going on at the table, and I would imagine in repeated plays, especially if you're playing with the same people over and over, you're going to need to see what's going on at the table.
Yeah, there's a port space where you can acquire new anglerfish. Those are the kind of special set collection ones, or refill your tackle box and refill your zones. So,
and then another skill. Competition, a game that develops healthy competitive habits as 2 or more parties compete for a goal or reward that isn't shared. What I loved was the weigh-in. At the end, you might have caught 3 fish, and I might have only caught 1 fish. But what if I have the 21-pounder? I'm feeling good going in against your 3 fish because of how that end game scoring happens. I really liked the in-game competition. That was kind of something nice to keep us interacting, but that end game scoring I really enjoyed as those pieces were unfolding.
And each fish that you catch has a colored tag on the back. And at the beginning of the game, you set one of those colored tags out on the board, and it gives you an extra bonus point for every fish that you submit at that final weigh-in with that color tag, which just adds a whole other wrinkle of like, this one might be a little bit less, but I get an extra point for it. So should I put that in there to get the point, but it may cost me the bigger trophy? Is a cool little thing that's even working. There's a gameplay in the element of final scoring.
Yeah.
Which is cool. It's not just, all right, everybody lay your cards down. There's a kind of a selection process. If I got to look through these, first I got to find, my highest weighted fish, but then see if any of them match a special tag, and then I got a decision on my hands. I didn't put observation on the list because I've done it. I feel like it's been on the list frequently.
Yeah, it would have been your 3rd week in a row. I had that on the post, but I thought, you know what? Our listeners might think I'm coming off as snarky if I call out Doug like that. So I should have known. That you do, frequency counts of your skills, and you try to vary it up. But that's why it was a bold prediction.
Yeah, when they have unique skills, I like to highlight those. And it's been a while since we've had a game that has that kind of logistics of working out where things need to go and how.
Yeah, and I think we could keep going. And comprehension is another one with exactly what you're talking about, just how those pieces fit in together and how the rewards chain together off my tackle box in a way that I think becomes very apparent in that initial play. This is a game that I played for the first time very recently. Yeah, and it stood out as just a unique blend of the mechanics and theme and accessibility. It was a ton of fun.
Yeah, the only thing I have to be aware of, and I probably goes without saying, but it's like the theme may not work for everybody. I mean, I'm always on the lookout for kind of unique themes and different things. I don't always want to play, fantasy orc games.
I do.
And so, I can see somebody like, I'm never playing a fishing game. Like, okay, that's fine, but I obviously I don't need to say the theme of the game. You're going to make that decision, but it is something that I'm aware of that some people may be turned off by that of just like, I'm not
that's
playing
a good
game like that.
point. Now, where do you think it fits the best?
I think it can work with certainly with gamers, at a game night. And then I think if you are bringing it, I think it's a game that a family could have a lot of fun with based on those end game scoring mechanisms. And certainly if you have a grandpa, an uncle, a dad, a brother that loves fishing and is somewhat of a casual gamer, this is a great game to kind of bring to the table and maybe get that outdoorsman indoors for a little bit to play a game with them. How about you?
Yeah, and or outdoors woman. Like I've got a sister who's a really good fisher. I think if you fish, you're gonna like the game, and it's. I don't know. I struggled with finding the fit, and some of that is we play a lot of games, and so like I said, that blend of theme and mechanics really has this game stand out from so many other games. But I do think it fits in great to, I hesitate to say this, but to a collector. If you're somebody who has a lot of games, and I would classify that as 100 plus, Coldwater Crown is one that kind of stands out from a lot of other games. And I've never said that before when we've answered this question. It's usually family, school, convention. No, this is this is a cool little game.
This is a game that I could imagine pulling out once a year and going to like Goodwill and buying an old fishing trophy and having our own little yearly tournament. Like we're going to get this game out and whoever wins is going to get to keep the trophy for the year.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of games that I feel like I would want to put that extra effort in.
Yeah.
But I could feel like this is a game that could easily become a family tradition if you wanted it. Like you could play it up.
Well, and I love what you said there. And I was chiding Doug earlier. Longtime listeners will know Doug has brothers, I have sisters. And if you've got people who fish in your life, I mean, this is, and they think, oh, you're the board gamer. And they no, check out this one. The same designers also made a fly fishing game. Yep. And this Coldwater Crown is the one that people do say is just appears to be a little bit more accessible. I haven't played the freshwater fly game, but I've played this one and I really do enjoy it, and I play it again.
All right. Well, that is our game of the week, Coldwater Crown from Bellwether Games. Give it a try if you get the chance. Let's move on to the School of Gaming.
The School of Gaming. In the School of Gaming, we discuss concepts, keywords, and etiquette and helpful ideas, we hope, in the world of gaming. This week, we're going to discuss better ways to teach kids new games. All right, so I'm going to take a bifurcated approach here, Doug, meaning there are two pathways. Going down one pathway, you have your own children. Going down another pathway, you have other people's children. So which pathway would you like to go down first when teaching a new game?
Well, I'm going to assume, let's go down your own children first, because I based on the folks in our Discord, I think that's a common thing that even if people are educators, they are gaming at home when they get a chance.
Yep. Sounds good. Then I'm going to set aside some of the jargon and educator vernacular. And so feel free to interrupt and interject here, because you certainly have a ton of experience with teaching your own children new games. So the standard way, sit down, we're going to play a new game. I call this approach, the beatings will continue until morale improves.
The Michael McCabe teaching approach.
What's that?
The Michael McCabe game teaching approach.
No way, man. Not at all. This is the better way, Doug. This is the better way. So, with my own children, I have very much started to take more of a conversational approach and treat it like a book. And almost treat a board game like a book that you should want to read. And I've been trying to, and have been using some of those teaching techniques of, we have a little next up table right next to our kitchen table, and talking to them about, what do you think this game's about? So working on that, either prediction or activating prior knowledge is one of the teacher terms that's used, but comparing it to other games, right? You like this small box card game called Llama, bring up another small box card game called Take 5, and just asking them what they think it's about, and really bringing them into it instead of just sit down, we're going to play a new game. So trying to pique their interest. And then I'll be real quick and I'll send it over to you, but if there's a common author or theme or genre, right? So making that connection to previous games played, and really letting them know on the front end of, here's why I think you would enjoy this new game. The other thing where it's different from teaching other people's kids, I have to be brutally honest, clear, and open about why I want them to learn another game. So why I think they'll enjoy it. Or, hey, I want to play a game because I'm getting ready to teach a game and I want you to help me. Those are two very different things. Sit down, we're going to play a game. I think you're going to enjoy it. Or, hey, I'm getting ready to teach this game to other people. Can you just help me with a part of it? That'll usually bring an eye roll and people will walk away. And then the third one, which I hardly ever do, about once or twice a year, but I have to review a game for the podcast and need your help. That's desperation. Right.
Most
there,
people
Doug.
don't have to deal with that.
No. So three very different approaches, but your kids know when you're telling the truth. Like instinctually they know, and that's where that being very, very clear with them. And that's where I think there's some power in there of, I think you're going to enjoy this game. Just sit down, and you might get the little eye roll, but usually, that helps.
Yeah, I think for me, I tend to default towards the actually ignoring the game in the way that, for me, I'm more, hey, let's spend some time together. Let's do, we're going to do something fun. And I kind of minimize the idea that it's a new game or we're trying something new. Certainly don't, rarely have I ever brought up the idea of like, oh, we got to play this for the podcast. Usually it's, let's do something together. Let's play this new game I got, or let's try this out, and let's spend some time together, and making it more about that's what the goal is, instead of, I want you to like this game. I don't, I want you to try this or anything like that. More about that experience, because at the end of the day, I don't really care whether they like the game or not, in the sense of, because they're going to play it. I'm going to make them play it no matter what. No, if they hate a game, that doesn't bother me. I'm not going to get boo-boo face over that and be like, oh, well, I just spent $20 on this game and none of you kids like it. And, I'm not, it doesn't matter to it. I shouldn't say I don't care. It doesn't matter to me whether they like a game or not.
It's not going to change how you feel about your children.
Correct. Or it's like, we'll move on to, we'll try a different game. And so I think having that approach is a big one. I think certainly, and this would apply to both scenarios, but the idea of like, hey, I've got 3 new games here, and let them pick it out. Yeah. Like, which one do you want? It's like, narrow the focus down. Don't just say, hey, we're going to play a game, pick one.
Yeah.
I've got these 3 new ones. Which one is the most interesting to you? And that's going to work with your kids or anyone else. If you're working with other kids, that I think is a big lost starting point, where a lot of times gamers are like, I just got Wormspan and I need somebody to play it with. Kids, you're playing this new game with me. And that's not a great way to teach kids new games.
No.
You need them to buy in first.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a great way to burn people out on playing games. That's really good, Doug. I love what you said there about the focus not being on the new game, but on just getting to the table and spending time together. Maybe I'm paraphrasing or inferring based on what you said, but that's really good. That's really good. I think since we're on the topic, I do just want to highlight other people's children, but you tell me when we got to wrap it up and move it along and get over to our sponsors here. But with other people's children, the biggest difference from other people's children and your own children, you can never be too prepared.
Yeah.
So know the rules. In fact, my goal is often to never go to the rules so that I'm just able to focus on playing. And the standard way for teaching a new board game to other people's children is to tell them about the educational value and why that game is historically significant. The better way, whenever possible, let the kid lead the way and select the game. And then if I have 7 games on a table and I know all of those games inside and out, the better way is to let the kids choose the game. I know the rules. If at all possible, have multiple games set up. Be more than honest about being a fool when you don't know the rules or can't remember something. Despise goodwill in a little bit of time. So that if I have to go to the rule book, it's like, I can't remember. How many cards do I deal out? Is it 5 or 7? And then, nope, the rules say 6. That little bit of time, people are not going to lose interest, right? And then also, I mentioned this earlier with my own kids, but I believe this to be true. Great techniques for teaching reading and introducing literature are also relevant for teaching board games. So that activating prior knowledge, making predictions, using graphics. Board games have built-in graphics. They are, sales tools. The art of the game sells it. Questioning, monitoring comprehension, even in the rules teach when you're teaching a new game, making sure that people are understanding what you are saying and throwing down. It's so important. And then I think the other thing, just making the purpose very clear. Whether you're in a board game club or it's been a long time since I've taught a game in a classroom setting, but really being very clear about the purpose. Is it on engagement and creating an inclusive environment where all are welcome, or is it on a specific skill that you're trying to learn? Are you really trying to learn probability with this game? I think those things are very, very important.
Yeah, I think a couple of things that I have that, and maybe they're not necessarily better ways to teach games, but they are certainly helpful things that you can do for yourself. And one of them is the idea of focusing on games. It comes down to kind of game selection. And these tend to fit more towards teaching other people's kids games, but focusing on games that have kind of one core mechanism before introducing some sort of game that has, 5 different things. And it's like, how about you just focus on teaching them what deck building means, not a deck building worker placement with dice rolling in it out of the gate. Like, you can help yourself by scaffolding those things up. And another kind of cheat when you're doing that is sticking to games that, and these, I was thinking about the board game club while I was doing this, of sticking to games that you can teach as you play. Right? You don't need to have the entire explanation of everything out there. If you can get the kids playing faster, it's going to be easier to teach them throughout the game and hold their attention span than say, all right, hold on, we got a 20-minute teach we need to get through, and then I'll let you guys run loose and we can have fun with this game, because they're going to get burnt out, they're not going to pay attention, and you're going to lose them. And so the games that you can get set up quickly and get them playing quickly and teach as you go so far in making that first experience and teaching a new game, a new experience to a gamer that much better.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think the clincher that I want to add, you don't have to finish a game. And you and let people know the rules, may get taught, learned, or played incorrectly. But like Doug just talked about, the faster you can get that game into startup and going, the better off. I think the better the chances are that new game is going to stick and get repeated plays, where it can get finished, where rules can get ironed out and played 100% as written by the designer and all those other pieces.
Well, and you certainly don't want to create. I love that idea of if everybody at the table is not enjoying this, we're ending it. Like, if you're not having a good time, like, let's move on to a different game. If it, for whatever reason, because I think if you just keep plowing through, it's like, we will finish this game. You're just creating that bad experience, those bad memories. That's like, I don't want to learn another new game with him because I'm going to be stuck in it regardless of whether I like it. And they're already going to be predisposed to, like, I don't want to do this. So I think if you can.
And kids have choices these days that we didn't have growing up.
Yeah.
You know, we had channels 2, 7, and 9, and you had to get up to turn it from one channel to the next.
Yeah.
You know, whereas you're sitting on the couch, you can go from YouTube to Netflix to Disney Plus, back to YouTube to Netflix to Disney Plus while playing a game. Ah! So it's just that sense of having to finish the game, which I think is so quintessential to adult gamers, isn't always as important to kids.
Yeah. Awesome. So hopefully some good ideas there. If you've got any other ideas or questions or something that you've been struggling with as far as teaching new games to some of the kids in your life, reach out on the Discord or email us, email@gameschooler.com. We'd be happy to help as best we can, and maybe some of the folks over there have some good ideas as well. Let's move on to the high five. If you're anything like us, you're constantly on the hunt for new games to try out. This week, Michael and I are going to be talking about 30-minute or less family games that you may have missed. So Michael and I talk a lot about family games on this podcast. In fact, we had the top 50 family games of all time late last year. So we originally had this as, 30-minute or less family games. And told Mike, I'm like, isn't this just going to be a list of our favorite family games that are under 30 minutes at the front? So we kind of had that revelation of, all right, these are ones that maybe went under the radar. Maybe they're hidden gems. Maybe you've never heard of them. It gives us a way to talk about some more family games that we have enjoyed and maybe you'll enjoy as well. So,
yeah. Oh, go ahead. I jumped in. No, I put a few additional caveats on my list just to make sure that I don't talk about games that I'm always talking about. I wanted to make sure that, as Doug said, it wasn't a top 50 family game of all time, and it was not a game of the week. I also wanted it to not be in the 2023 to 2024, but needed to be released in the last 5 years if possible category, which a lot of them actually did hit. But if it's something that came out in 2023 or 2024, you didn't miss it. It's still here and out and hopefully readily available. So
the newest on my list is from 2013.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I think most of these are all available in one form or another. So
that's great. So people are going to walk out with snippets of a bunch of games, and I'm going to get it started with one that's still in my collection and I enjoy, but darn it, I just haven't found enough people to play it with, and that is Disney Sorcerer's Arena. The designer is Sean Fletcher, publisher is The Op, and it straddles the line of family and light hobby, but it does play in about 30 minutes. It's 2 to 4 players. It's a skirmish game where you are playing cards out of your hand and moving characters and attacking other opponents. A lot of different things that I really enjoy in a game. And boy, has this one just kind of slid under the radar. They have a core set and a half dozen different expansion sets that come out. It's currently ranked at 3,889 overall. And the day that this episode's airing, Lorcana, Ravensburger's Lorcana will be coming out with its 4th set. And so, you definitely see the penetration of Disney all over the hobby. But that for me is one that I feel like has slid under the radar. It's a board game that was based on an app, which I think is sometimes a difficult jump to make. And I did enjoy the app as well when it first came out. So that's number 5 for me. That I do have it on a trade list now in case another home can get more use out of it than mine can. But it's a game that I have personally enjoyed.
Yeah. What year did you say that came out?
2022.
Yeah, and I feel like that was one where that came out. There was hype about it because of the app, and people were kind of familiar with it. And then shortly after that would have been the announcement that Lorcana was coming. And so everybody, it's like, oh, here's another 2-player Disney game that had a little more buzz, right?
Yeah, and I think for a lot of families, you have Unmatched and you have Dice Throne that are in a similar type of universe where you're skirmishing that probably just work better for those gamer families. I know that is the case in my house, but I enjoy the game.
Yeah.
So that's number 5.
All right. My number 5 is a game from 2013 from Yellow, and that is Welcome to the Dungeon. This is a game in which you are going to be going through a dungeon, and people are either adding villains to the dungeon and or taking away equipment from the dungeon until somebody is left and says, other players are passing and dropping out until somebody's left that actually has to go through the dungeon and hopefully survive with the equipment and the knowledge that they know of what's in the deck and what equipment is left. And if you make it through, awesome. If you can do that twice, you win. So it's got this kind of cool bluffing. It plays really fast, and it's a small package, probably under $15, if it's even that high at this point, probably on Amazon. But just a fun, quick game, and that's Welcome to the Dungeon.
That's awesome. Yeah, great game. And how long do you think that plays in? Is it 10 to 15 minutes?
I would say probably max out at 20, 25.
Yeah. Cool. My number 4 is from Sir Richard Garfield, and the years on this kind of vary and range because it's had several different releases, but that's Keyforge, a unique deck builder for 2 players. Doug knows the game better than me, so I jump in here if I butcher it too badly, but it was initially released from Fantasy Flight. I know there were some issues and things that happened along the way with some of the master code getting out, but here's the cool thing about a 2-player deck builder of Keyforge. Every single deck is unique. So if I go to the store and I get one, this Call of the Acheons, and Doug has a different pack of Call of the Acheons, and I'm sure I'm probably butchering that wrong. Sorry.
I don't know.
Archons. There we go.
I'm the king of butchering pronunciation.
Yeah. They're different, and maybe people haven't missed it because it is ranked 718 overall on Board Game Geek, but it's not one that I'm hearing and seeing and out and about among any of our audiences, where it's kids or gamers. I feel like you hear about it on the Dice Tower News when they're having new releases, this or that, but it is a really cool game and a really cool little experience for under $20. The other thing, there's just so many deck builders out there right now.
Well, it's not really
Magic.
It's not really a deck builder per se. It's the equivalent of Magic the Gathering. Essentially, it's that type of game. You're not building a deck throughout the game. You play the cards that are in your deck. What I think works, or where this really works, is if you think you have kids in your house that would like Magic the Gathering, but you don't want to get into the rules complexity and the teaching and or deck building of acquiring new cards to fill out an awesome deck. This is one that's like, here's your deck, here's my deck, let's go. I think it does a really good job of filling in that void. I'm trying to think of what that what do they call those? It's
Well, they've got hand management down, and
like
Rise of Ascension is the 2-player starter pack that I have that I've really enjoyed and have played a handful of times. It's been a few years, but you get a starter set and you can go.
Yeah, no, it's awesome.
Yeah, that's my number 4, Richard Garfield's Key Forge, all one word.
All right, my number 4 is a bit of a party game, and it's been very popular, but it's not one that I think gets mentioned a lot in the family game category, and it's certainly one we haven't really talked about on the show, and that's Dixit, published in 2008 by Libellude. In Dixit, if you are the clue giver, you're going to say something like patriotic, and then pick out a card of kind of abstract, very surrealistic art cards that make up this game, and you're going to put one down there, and everybody else is going to pick a card from their hand, and it gets shuffled together, flipped over, and people are trying to guess which one was actually your card. And players are earning points if they get other people to guess their card instead of yours, but you don't want yours to be so obvious that everybody guesses it. It's a good game with some unique art, very expandable, and it's one of those that it's got a scoring structure for a party game that works, but certainly one that you can say, hey, we're going to play 3 rounds of this and kind of be done if we want, or we're going to play the game to conclusion, and it's going to be about a half hour. And so I think it's one, like I said, that usually gets thought of in a party game atmosphere, but in my case, a family of 5 sitting down and just kind of those inside jokes and the family humor of shared experiences that you can contribute to this game make it a really cool family game.
Awesome. So, Doug, I'm going to give you a little bit of choice and agency here. One of these will slip into the honorable mention. This is my Phil Walker Harding entry spot.
Okay.
Do you want to hear of a flip and write, or do you want to hear of a set collection?
I would like to hear about a set collection.
Set collection is Yummy World Party at Picnic Palace, 2017 release with Whiz Kids as the publisher. And you can hear Phil Walker Harding talk about it in episode 104 when we interviewed him and just asked, hey, what's one of your hidden gems that you've designed? What's one of your lesser known titles? And this was the game that he mentioned, and I picked it up at Noble Night, which is a friendly local game store in our area here, and one of the largest in the world, so they claim. And I'll tell you what, my 8-year-old and I love this game, and we played a lot at 2-player, but in Yummy World Picnic Park, or Picnic Palace rather, sorry, cards are coming out, and you choose when you're going to collect them all, but you can only draft a certain number of times in a round. So it's like you can let them stack, but then when you go and collect, that's what you get for that round. And why I have this as a lesser known or whatever, what's our actual high five called? May have missed. This thing got absolutely crushed in the Board Game Geek ratings. It's like a 6.3, and a lot of people have just slammed it as being to this, to that. Well, guess what, folks? It's a weight of 1.0. It's 2 to 4 players, and it's one of those where if y'all like Sushi Go in your house, and if I think it works really well for that 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old, there probably is a ceiling. But it's one that we still get played, and I'm sure we'll probably play another 2 to 3 times here this year in the year of 2024. So that's number 3, Yummy World Party at Picnic Palace, Phil Walker Harding's.
Oh, that's an easy title to remember.
Yeah, might be why it got hidden.
My number 3 is from 2011 from Calliope Games. And Chris Leader is the designer. Chris Leader is awesome, an awesome dude.
Yeah,
and that game is called Roll For It. If you are looking for a game that is kind of a simpler version of Las Vegas and has some of that dice rolling action of not necessarily impact, but that idea of like you're rolling dice, this is a great game. There's 3 cards laid out with a certain combination of values, so you may want a a 4, a 5, and a 6. And you'll roll your dice, and you got to place one out, and you're trying to fill up and claim those cards. The more dice that it takes, the higher points that card is worth, and you're placing them out there, and it's quick, it's fast, and as the adult at the table, I'm usually going for the big long ones, which you may have. It may take all 6 of your dice, and you need to get all 6s to claim that card. And eventually you got one dice you're rolling every turn and hoping it's a 6 and hoping it's a 6. And meanwhile, your kids are grabbing all these other cards and scoring points. I have the deluxe edition. There's 3 versions, a red, a purple, and a deluxe. And it's a pretty small, compact package that travels well, and a fun, quick game. One of those ones that you could, we were talking about in the school of gaming. This is one that you can teach and play at the same time, up and running in no time.
Yeah, and it's adjacent to Yahtzee in some ways, right? But what I mean is, if people like Yahtzee in their house, they're probably going to like a little bit of roll for it, right?
Yeah, chasing after different combinations with dice. In that case, you don't get any re-rolls, but you may be trying to accomplish it over several turns.
Yeah.
Good. So that's my number 3. Roll for it.
Awesome. My number 2, it's not that it's a little hard to get, but it is a little bit pricier than what I think it should be at the moment. So just keep that in mind, a little caveat there. And it was 2022 Golden Geek Best 2-Player Game nominee, Golden Geek Best Board Game Expansion nominee. So how could you have missed that? And that's Wingspan Asia. And Wingspan Asia, I just don't feel like it gets talked about, mentioned, or in the same love as a lot of the other Stonemaier games. It does 2 very, very unique things. One that I think is awesome, and the other that I run away from. The thing that is awesome, it's a 1 to 2 player duet mode. So you can play this game solo or play a 2-player Wingspan, and it has this little bonus reward track that is incredible. It's absolutely awesome. That's duet mode. Or you can play in flock mode, which is a 6 to 7 player expansion that I don't think I will ever use this game for.
Yeah.
Because Wingspan, for me, it taps out at about 4 players. You get into 5 players, boy, does that game get long. It's a number 9 family game right now on Board Game Geek. And like
regular
I said,
Wingspan is.
No.
Asia is?
Wingspan Asia, is the number 9 family game right now and ranked 116 overall on Board Game Geek.
How is a 2-player game a number 1 family game?
Yet I don't see it out in the wild. I don't hear people talking about playing it. It doesn't. So I've recommended this to a few different coworkers who really like Wingspan and have just said, hey, if this is a nice little travel version, especially if it's just you and your significant other. I really enjoy it. I have a lot of fun, and you can get it up and running fairly quickly. So that's my number 2. I've mentioned it on a few other lists at a few other times. It's one that I just enjoy, and I want to get back to the table sooner rather than later.
All right. My number 2 is published in 2010 by Asmodee and designer Frederick Henry. And this is a timeline series. So there's a lot of different versions of this, either timeline or there's a card line, animals and globetrotters that have different things. Essentially, you get a hand of cards, and in timeline, which is based on the dates that things happen, you start with a card face up in the middle of the table with a date on it. You have a hand of cards. You don't know what the dates are of those, but you're trying to squeeze them into the timeline. And you flip the card over if it's in the correct spot, which is very easy at the beginning of the game. If there's only one card out there, you put it out there. Yeah, it was either before or after that. You're right, it stays out there. If you're wrong, you draw another card to replace the one that you discarded. Essentially, you're trying to be the first one to get rid of all of your cards by placing them correctly in the timeline. And it has so many cool things on it, which is you are learning as you go. there's always cards in there that you're like, really? That's when that was invented? And how is that possible? Where it's like, if I told you that YouTube came out in 2005, you'd be like, no, it was before that. It was in, late 90s. And like, no, it came out in 2005. So those kind of discussions happen every time you play it. There's that educational component. You don't have to be a trivia whiz to play and participate and have a good time. And if you start getting into the animal ones, you can do it by like height and lifespan and things like that are pretty cool little tools and great things that could fit into the classroom as well as any sort of game schooling situation. And this has been released a couple of different times. I think there's a newer version like Timeline Twist that's come out that are adding different variations. My favorite is the Timeline Challenge, which was kind of a big box kind of party game that added, you could add all of the timeline games into. So that's my number 2, Timeline.
Awesome. Well, I can hear people out there on Board Game Geek right now saying that, okay, you had Yummy World Party at Picnic Palace. Yes, that's 20 minutes. You can get Keyforge done in under a half hour. Wingspan Asia, no way. Well, if you know Wingspan and you're playing 1 to 2 players, you're going to get that done in a half hour. But this next one on Board Game Geek, also, it says 30 to 45 minutes. All right. So, but in my experiences, it's more at 30 or less, and that's Cartographers. 2019 release, Jordy Adden, and Thunderworks Games is the publisher. Thunderworks is right down the road from us here in Madison, Wisconsin. They do a great job. But in Cartographers, you are flipping cards and then filling in like the polyomino shape of what comes out on those cards, like Tetris style, on your sheet, and you're trying to get certain combinations that are going to score in very specific rounds. So in the first round, you're going to score cards A and B. In the second round, you're going to score cards B and C. In the third round, you're going to score cards C and D. And in the fourth round, you're going to score cards A and D. And I might have gotten that wrong in some way, but anyway.
100% correct.
Awesome. Just an awesome game that is a little bit tricky to get up and running the first time, because it's like, wait, what am I filling in and what shape and what pattern? But my goodness, when this thing goes, and as I was putting together this list today, I realized like my wife, who's an art teacher, and my 14-year-old, they haven't actually played this game yet. And I sent them the link to Rodney on Watch It Played and didn't say, hey, I didn't say you have to play it with me. I just said, I think you guys would enjoy this game. And it is such a wonderful game at 30 minutes or less that once you get it played, that first play might take 45 minutes. So a little bit of gratitude there. Same thing with the Wingspan Asia. But once I'm talking about repeated plays and people that want to play games, I think there are some of those light hobby and even hobby level type games that you can get in that 30-minute span. So number 1 for me is Cartographers.
Cool. All right. My number 1 is, I feel like I'm the only champion of this game, but I think it's phenomenal, and I love its simplicity, and it's been reprinted as a different edition, so you may be able to find that one if you can't find the original. But that is Rise of Augustus, published in 2013 by Huracan. This is a Paulo Mori game with Vincent Dutrait art, and 2013 is, we talked about one of Beth Sobel's early art outings. This is probably one of Vincent Dutrait's early art outings as well. But in Rise of Augustus, you are essentially kind of playing bingo. Yeah. There is a town crier that is pulling chips out of a bag, and then you are moving your legionnaires onto different cards in front of you, hoping to complete the card, and then doing some sort of set collection as it goes along. It also has a cool bonus where once you've completed, 4 cards or 5 cards, 6, 7, you can take a card as a bonus for that, however far that you've gotten. However, you can never go back down. So when you've completed your 5th one, if you decide not to take that bonus, you can never get it again. Because maybe you're trying to get the 6th one. Well, if Michael comes along and gets the 6th one, that's not there for me anymore. So I can't get that one. So kind of choosing when you want to cash out for that bonus, and there's some other set collection. It was reprinted as Via Magica by Blue Orange Games, so you may be able to find that one as well. But for a simple mechanism that people are familiar with, that kind of bingo concept without having to deal with numbers or just clear off the board, let's play again. It's kind of more of a complete game situation and experience that I just really have enjoyed every time I played this game, of just that eureka moment of, ooh, I filled this card up. Let's get some points and get another one in here. So that's my number one, Rise of Augustus.
Awesome. Any honorable mention?
The only one I have is a small little game from Yellow called Farmini. And you're kind of building out a farm and trying to put the animals in the farm. And it certainly swung under the radar, but my kids have enjoyed that one. So I wanted to highlight that. How about you?
Oh, that's cool. So I have another Phil Walker Harding one. It's called Explorers, and it came out in 2021. Ravensburger published it, and I feel like it came out at a time where there were a ton of flipping rights and rolling rights. And in Explorers, what's unique, you get these 4 tiles that kind of fasten together in the middle of your player board, and then you're coming out and trying to make certain combinations from there. And it's just a wonderful little tactile game of how everything fits together on your own board. It does get a little messy with the black markers, but that can be part of the fun as well. And it's one that I've played solo, and I'll play with one of my kiddos. We don't really play that one as a family a whole lot, but I've had good luck with that at smaller play counts, and I feel like I'm playing a full-blown roll and write in 15 to 20 minutes. So
Awesome.
that's one that I wanted to just shine a light on.
All right. Well, hopefully those gives you some new games to kind of check out and look at, and maybe one that were under your radar as well. A reminder to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, so you can get every episode as soon as it drops. Follow us on X at GameSchoolerU. Our Discord, gameschooler.com/Discord. Next week, we're going to be going back in the vault, and we're going to be talking about Kingdom Builder, which I believe has some new editions coming out.
Ooh.
So that should be kind of timely. And we'll be talking about what actually is a euro. We use a lot of jargon on this podcast, so for new gamers, maybe we can help you figure out when people are saying, what's a euro? We're not talking about currency. We're talking about a specific type of game.
Or food.
Or food, yeah. And we'll be talking about our high five light hobby euro games after discussing what a euro game is. So that's all for us this week. Thank you so much for spending the last hour or so with us. We truly appreciate it.
Now get out there and keep gaming.
Still hungry, 3 and 3 and